The years after Ayyub's miracle were unlike anything Edessa had ever witnessed. It was not because his flocks multiplied beyond counting, nor because his strength returned greater than before. It was because Ayyub himself had changed. He moved through the city like a living reminder, a walking verse of patience. His presence softened the proud and gave hope to the broken. For those who looked at him saw a man who had crossed through a darkness deeper than night and emerged with a heart brighter than dawn. Though his wealth returned, Ayyub did not rebuild his house in gold. Instead, he rebuilt it in simplicity. A small courtyard where the wind could whisper, a quiet fountain with water that reflected the sky, clay walls touched gently by sunlight, a home where the heart could breathe. Rahma tended the small garden, planting herbs and roses until the fragrance drifted through their home like a blessing. Ayyub often sat beneath the old olive tree, weaving baskets or repairing tools with his own hands. One passerby, unable to hide his surprise, asked why a prophet blessed with riches still worked with his hands. Ayyub simply smiled and answered that gratitude was a deed, not a feeling. Of all the gifts returned to him, none touched Ayyub more than the blessing of children. New sons were born, strong, bright-eyed, full of laughter. New daughters arrived, graceful, kind, reflections of their mother's gentleness. The home that once echoed with silence now overflowed with life. Each evening, Ayyub gathered his children beneath the fig tree and told them stories, not of wealth or strength or status, but of the long, painful trial that had shaped him. He told them how he slept on ashes, how his skin cracked like dry earth, how people avoided him, how he owned nothing except a single prayer. "My Lord, harm has touched me, but you are the most merciful." The children always fell silent, their small faces glowing in the dim light. One son once asked if he had ever feared he would never be healed. Ayyub shook his head gently and said he feared nothing except losing his faith. One spring afternoon, a group of weary travelers arrived at his home. Dust clung to their clothes, and exhaustion showed in their faces. They bowed respectfully, explaining that they had come from distant lands, seeking counsel, after hearing his story. Ayyub welcomed them with fresh water and food before they asked how a man could remain faithful when everything was taken from him. Ayyub smiled softly and told them that a person remained faithful by remembering that whatever was taken was never truly his. Another traveler asked what gave strength during the darkness. Ayyub replied that strength came from the certainty that dawn always comes. One night, Ayyub walked alone into the desert. The moon hung low, the dunes looked like waves of frozen gold, and the night wind carried the ancient whisper of the earth. He climbed a small hill and looked toward the valley where he had once lost everything, where he had cried alone, where insects had crawled over his skin, where his body had burned from within. Closing his eyes, he felt his heart swell with remembrance, and he whispered, "My Lord, had you left me in that state for a lifetime, I would have still been your grateful servant." It was not a poetic phrase, it was truth, carved by suffering and polished by patience. As he prayed on the hill, a sudden stillness spread through the desert. The wind fell silent, the air thickened, and an unseen presence hovered near. A soft, luminous voice whispered that he had passed his test, but must warn mankind, for the test of ease was heavier than the test of hardship. Ayyub lifted his head, understanding instantly. Hardship sharpens faith, comfort dulls it. Pain pushes one toward God, while luxury pulls one away. He vowed that he would remind humanity, even if they did not wish to be reminded. The next Sabbath, Ayyub stood before the people of Edessa and spoke with a voice that carried across the marketplace. He asked them if they remembered his years of suffering, and when the crowd murmured yes, he asked if they remembered the years that came after. He told them he no longer feared disease, but feared comfort, no longer feared poverty, but feared abundance, no longer feared losing health, but feared forgetting the one who healed him. The real test, he proclaimed, was not when life was taken, but when life was given back. His words fell over the city like a quiet storm, awakening hearts that had long been asleep. In the years that followed, Ayyub formed a small circle of students. He did not teach law or war or scripture. He taught perspective. He taught that suffering exposes the heart. Patience guards the soul. Gratitude multiplies blessings. Losing faith is the only true loss. And every trial ends, except the trial of pride. His sayings were written on clay tablets and carried across Arabia, Persia, and even Anatolia. Over time, Ayyub became more than a man. He became a mirror in which every person saw their own weakness, their own strength, and the state of their faith.